reports of the Local Government and Environment Committee on the 2012-13 estimates for Vote Environment and for Vote Internal Affairs Minister of Local Government.
The bill is set down for second reading. Are there any bills for introduction? There are no bills for introduction. The House then comes to questions for oral answer, and the first question stands in the name of the Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What reports has he received on the economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Speaker, Statistics New Zealand today reported that inflation rose 0.3% in the June quarter. Annual inflation fell to 1%, its lowest level since 1999. The CPI is increasing at its slowest rate in more than 12 years. At the same time, floating mortgage rates at around 5.75% are their lowest level in 45 years. This is saving a family with $200,000 mortgage about $200 a week compared to what they were paying 4 years ago. These factors are helping New Zealand families save more, pay down debt and get ahead.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, what are the factors?
Order.
They obviously don't care about the cost of living.
Order. I apologise to the member, but it's not helpful to have a raft of interjections before the question's even started. The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance.
Order. Order. The Honourable
They
Dr.
obviously
Nick
don't care about the cost of living.
Order. Order. Now look, order. I apologise to the member, but interjections like that are bound to cause disorder. I now ask members to desist. The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, what other factors are helping New Zealanders get ahead?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, while inflation has been falling, the economy has continued growing moderately. This is reflected in real after-tax wages, which have increased by about 11% since September 2008. The components of this are gross wages have increased 12%, after-tax gross wages have increased 20%, inflation has been a bit up over 8%, which leaves the 11% increase. This is a vast improvement on the situation in the 9 years to September 2008, when New Zealand's real after-tax wages increased by only 4.4% in total.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
How does the current level of inflation at a 13-year low compare with what the government inherited when it came into office in 2008?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, when the government came to office in November 2008, annual inflation was running at 5.1%, rather than 1% as it is today. And that's because power prices had risen by 72% in 8 years. Petrol prices were around 10% higher than they are now, and floating mortgage rates were at decade highs of almost 11%. The lower inflation we are now experiencing, combined with steady increases in after-tax wages, mean most Kiwi families are better off now than they were in 2008, and that is why they are able to reduce their debt and increase their savings.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
So, Minister, who was the Treasurer in charge of writing the two budgets leading to that brilliant low inflation figure by mid-1999?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, I think it may have been Mr. Winston Peters, and I know for sure he was under very close supervision by the then Minister of Finance.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Again to the Minister of Finance, what is the government doing in these very difficult global financial times to support jobs, to support higher incomes and economic growth?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, we are focusing on assisting those New Zealanders who can make the decisions that help grow the economy. Among those are people who run and work in businesses. It is when they decide to invest more capital and employ more people and pay more that we get economic growth. So in the past 3 years, the government has reduced the tax on work and on that sort of investment and raised the taxes on property speculation. We've also improved the regulatory environment for businesses by reducing the direct government cost of business, such as a significant reduction in ACC levies this year, and investing strongly in science and research related to business. Over the last couple of years, the economy has created 60,000 new jobs.
The Honourable David Parker.
Did today's CPI figures show a 4.5% pre-winter increase in electricity prices? And what proportion does he attribute to companies preparing for privatisation?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, none.
The Honourable David Parker.
Did Mighty River Power increase its prices to cover its increased costs, including the $400,000 per annum increase in its CEO's salary to $1.7 million per annum in advance of privatisation?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, Mighty River Power, like other power companies, has been going through cost-cutting efforts because there is more competition in the electricity market due to the reforms made by the government. My understanding is that most of the electricity price increase recorded here reflects Transpower passing through the cost of their extensive investment program in upgrading the grid.
Supplementary.
The Honourable David Parker.
Has the Minister seen JP Morgan's response to today's CPI figures stating, and I quote, "The breadth of the softness in today's report bears witness to the extent of accumulated slack in the economy"?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's... I think there is quite a plausible line of argument that the relatively low inflation figure today will probably be followed by other relatively low inflation figures due to the fact that the growth outlook around the world is pretty soft. In New Zealand, however, we continue to grow moderately in line with more recent forecasts, and in a world where many countries are slipping back into recession, that's not a bad achievement.
Question number 2, David Shearer, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister. Does he agree with his Minister of Finance that the mixed ownership